Central Processing Units by me, Johnston. With every passing day, the world becomes more and more integrated with technology. We make our lives easier and expand the frontier of possibilities, and there's hardly a better area that we do this in than computers. And they've come a long way since getting us to the moon. They run our appliances, our presentation software, and our online videos of presentations about their components. Now, computers may come in many forms, but today I'll be talking about a component of personal computers called the Central Processing Unit. This information is most pertinent to desktops. That said, laptops are usually similar in nature, so I can use my laptop's specifications for example's sake when need calls for it. I'll talk first about clock speed, then I'll discuss architecture. Lastly, I'll fill you in on naming conventions. Clock speed. The source for this section is Intel's article, What is Clock Speed? The CPU can be likened to the brain of the computer. It's one of the biggest contributors to a computer's speed. That said, other components, like the memory and graphics processing unit, wouldn't be able to take advantage of a high-end CPU if they weren't at least a little bit high-end themselves. But let's get back into how the CPU itself is judged. Clock speed is typically measured in gigahertz. This laptop, for instance, has a 2.3 GHz processor. That means it can perform 2.3 billion cycles per second. But what does that mean? Essentially, it's the speed that the CPU can follow instructions, or perform at. The greater the speed, the less time it takes your computer to take advantage of strenuous programs. If you want to check yours, it's easy to do on Windows. On your desktop, find the gear on the Start menu to open the settings. Navigate to System, then select About. Your central processing unit is shown under your device name, when the clock speed is displayed prominently. It's not the only aspect of the CPU that matters, though. Architecture. The source for this section is Adukeba's article, Cores versus Threads. A person may find that an older CPU might not perform as well as a newer CPU, even if the older one has a higher clock speed. One reason that this happens is cores, physical pieces of the CPU that look like little squares. Cores handle tasks. It used to be more common for CPUs to only have one core, and clock speed would determine how fast it is. But more recently, CPUs with multiple cores can divvy up the workload, so to speak, and run programs faster as a result. But there is another layer of segmentation. A physical core is divided into up to 2 virtual cores, which are called threads. It seems a bit much initially, but using multiple threads at the same time, multi-threading, can really speed programs along. So having more cores could have a sizable impact on your machine's performance. This makes it important to know which CPUs are newer, bringing us to naming conventions. The sources for this section are Zipedia's article, Generation of Processors for Computer, AMD versus Intel, and ZDNet's article, Here's How to Make Sense of AMD Ryzen Naming. Many companies make CPUs, and 2 very influential ones are AMD and Intel. Both these companies name their CPUs relatively similarly. Pardon the mistalk there. This laptop has the AMD Ryzen 7 3700U. Let's break this name up into pieces. AMD is the company name. Ryzen is the brand. The number standing alone, 7, is the segment, and different numbers refer to different types of users. Higher numbers typically referring to users that need their computer to do more strenuous tasks. The first number of the chunk, 3, is the generation, higher numbers meaning newer. The second number, 7, is for performance level, and higher numbers typically mean a faster CPU. The following numbers, the pair of zeros here, are where the model number goes. And the letter on the end refers to a feature of the CPU. The U in this instance means standard mobile, which seems fitting for a laptop that I can take anywhere. The march of time presses ever onwards, and the frontier of possibilities continues to grow. Computers will grow more powerful all the while, and we'll find more and more ways to make use of them. Today, I talked about one component of the personal computer, the central processing unit. I discussed its clock speed, architecture, and naming conventions. I hope that going forward, you can make use of this information to avoid being scammed, or just to appreciate the device in front of you that much more. Thank you.